Well, we just talked about it in our Farm Journal report. What's the potential impact a Trump 2.0 administration could have on trade? But it's how the new administration would use tariffs that's making its way into the headlines again and stirring some debate. AgriTalk's Chip Flory joining us this weekend for more on that. Chip?
Yeah, Ty, there are really two camps on how the Trump administration will use tariffs. Not if he's going to use tariffs. I think that's kind of a given, but how he is going to use tariffs. And now that we are going to get a second dose of Robert Lighthizer as the U.S. trade rep, I think that the use of tariffs is even more likely. So I had a conversation with former Deputy Assistant Trade Rep Ronald Baumgarten earlier this week on AgriTalk. It was a fascinating conversation. And I basically asked him, are we looking at a round of tariffs as a negotiating tool, or is the Trump administration really going to try to generate revenues for the federal government?
Whether or not one could fund the entire budget through tariff revenue, particularly given the way the authorities are now, that's quite uncertain. Although there could be, a component to it that's about raising revenue. On the other hand, there are voices that you might have heard and that I've heard coming from within the transition team that are more favorably disposed towards using the tariff authorities to bargain, as you're saying. So it's more of a reciprocity type concept. Look, U.S. has very low tariffs across the board, so you increase the tariffs, and then you have points of negotiation for market access with other countries.
Great perspective there, Chip. But what I just heard from that is the answer is actually both.
Yes, yeah, Tyne, that's how this trade rep sees it. Another thing that Mr. Baumgarten explained is that President Trump will need support from Congress to make these tariffs happen. So he can use things. He mentioned the Section 301, the Section 232 to initiate tariffs. There are ways that the White House can initiate tariffs. But going forward, when we know that we're going to have to get ready for it, what Baumgartner explained was watch for a mention of the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. International Emergency Economic Powers Act. When you see that, it's going to be a clear indication that the administration is preparing some sweeping tariffs and general use of tariffs on all imports. So when we see that, that means that agriculture should probably prepare for a round of retaliatory tariffs on U.S. exports as well. So there's going to be a lot of movement on this. One other thing that Baumgarten explained and mentioned, we cannot forget that the first Trump administration was very high on bilateral trade agreements. Multilateral with multi-countries, not so much. But bilateral trade agreements, he was very much in support of those kinds of agreements. So watch for development on that front, complete with the reciprocity that gains U.S. markets access into those other markets as well.
Thanks, Chip. You can catch him twice a day for AgriTalk. Well, Trump's pick for EPA this week created some nervousness for biofuels. Michelle Rook digs into why next.